I live inside my own world of make-believe.
Welcome fellow Fusioners, Character King here, and today I am bringing you the history of the Duel Links ban list. Duel Links' first change to the game was not really a ban list, it was a skill change. They had a few skills they changed, but the most important one was Switcharoo. Switcharoo was used often in Relinquish and a few other decks, and had the ability where you could once per turn, twice per duel, shuffle one card from your hand into your deck, shuffle, and then draw one card randomly. That was changed to have the effect where you need to take 1000 points of damage in order to use the same effects once per turn, twice per duel. They then had a skill change later where they wanted to hit Harpy Ladies, burn decks, and 3-star Demotion decks like Dark Magician. The skill Harpies Hunting Ground was changed, so instead of having Harpies Hunting Ground on your field when you start the duel, it would then be on the top of your deck, hurting the strategy where it was no longer playable. The skill Parasite Infestation used to, at the start of the duel, shuffle between 1 to 3 random parasites face up into your opponent's deck. They changed the skill so only put 2, hurting the burn decks. The skill 3-star Demotion originally had it where you could at any point pay 2000 life points, all monsters in your hand's levels were reduced by 3, so you could normal summon level 7s without much trouble. This skill is very problematic because you would use Supremacy Berry to boost your life points back up to full, and then the next turn you were able to repeat and summon another level 7 consistently, making the skill changed where it was no longer 2000 life points, they changed it to 3000 life points. Then, soon after, Duel Links finally had their first ban list. They only hit one card, Restructor Revolution, because basically people with the Duel Standby skill would have both players start with 5 cards in their hand, and if you go first, you use cards like Cup of Ace to have either your opponent draw, or you would draw cards, and the rest of your deck would be burn cards. With Restructor Revolution, they would take 200 points of burn damage for every card in their hand, so you would make them draw 2 more, so they would have 7 cards in their hand, dealing 1400 damage per Restructor Revolution. Being able to use 3, you win in an FTK. Then, Duel Links, about 3 months later, hit 3 cards. They put limited to 1, Champion's Vigilance, limited to 1, Machine Angel Ritual, and limited to 2, Red Eye Spirit. This was Duel Links' first chance to show the new way the ban list works, where if you have a limited 1 card, you can only run 1 limited card in the entire pool. So if you run 1 Champion's Vigilance, you cannot run a Machine Angel Ritual or a Restructor Revolution. Red Eye Spirit was limited to 2 because it had, unlike other decks, a ability to get out multiple monsters with ease by using Red Eye's Insight to send your Red Eye's Zombie Dragon to the graveyard. You could bring it back with Red Eye's Spirit. Now, Vigilance was hit because with the Red Eye's normal and 3 Vigilance, you were able to go first and negate all of your opponent's normal summons for multiple turns, having it where if you went first, it was very unfair to play against because there was not an out to the card. And when Duel Links had GX implemented, Cyber Angels had way too much support. They were able to constantly protect their big Cyber Angel monsters, banishing multiple Machine Angel Rituals, so they limited the Machine Angel Ritual to 1 to keep it from being used. However, Cyber Angel players would then use Machine Angel Absolute Ritual in its stead, which gave some other strengths. And with these strengths and not many decks able to keep up with Cyber Angels, they basically in January had to semi-limit the Cyber Angel Dakini and Machine Angel Ritual to make it where you can only run 2 of 1, or 1 and 1, or 0 and 2. Then, Duel Links in the same month, around the time they were going to release their skills, had their first emergency ban list. They hit Woodland Sprite, because Woodland Sprite, with the Bamboo card supports, was able to actually FTK your opponent consistently when you went first. Then for the skills, they finally hit 3-star Demotion where it was no longer playable for the most part, because they took it where it was no longer 3000 life points, because for 3000 life points you were able to summon out cards like Toon Barrel Dragon, where you were able to have, with Toon Kingdom protecting it, ways to destroy your opponent and then attack directly for a lot of damage. Or you could play Black Dragon Ninja and Ninjas, and with the cards in hand, you were able to banish things consistently, attack many times in a game, and have a lot of strength for the deck. So they changed 3-star Demotion, where you had to have your life points 1000 or below to be able to activate it for all cards in your hand. But if you only impact Kazujin, Suijin, or Song of the Thunder, you could use it at any point in the game, once per duel. They also had to hit a bug fix change for Destiny Draw, because Destiny Draw at the time would not shuffle your deck. So basically, when you use Destiny Draw, you look at your entire deck, would add whatever card you want, and then your deck would stay in the same order, so you could actually write down all of your deck and know exactly every card you're going to draw for the rest of the game. Konami also had to change the skill Restart, because there was actually no time limit originally for Restart on how long you had before you had to draw a new hand, and there was no timer. But the important thing about it was, during a KC Cup, during the first day, for some reason, when you had Restart and you would run it, and you don't shuffle back your hand, you just wait, your opponent would time out. They fixed it for the second day of the KC Cup, but for the whole first day you were able to get free wins and see a lot of weird names climb up the board because of that interaction. So they changed Restart, where it's only 10 seconds for you to decide when you want to shuffle back your hand. Then they changed the skill Age Mechs. Age Mechs, basically before, would start when the duel started, give you an Ancient Gear Castle, but they changed it where it starts at the beginning of your turn, because decks were basically having trouble versing Age Mechs, because if you went first against it, you would not want to normal summon, because you wouldn't want to give them a counter to summon Ancient Gear Beast, or have a faster way to get out Ancient Gear Golem. Then they hit the skill Mind Scanned. Mind Scanned basically had it where if your life points were 3000 or above, you could always see whatever your opponent had set, which was very important because in a Cyber Angel meta, where you can summon Cyber Angel Dakini and use the effect, it became very imperative, because if you see your opponent having an enemy controller and you use Dakini's effect, they will Econ take and you'll lose your Dakini. Where if you see they don't have one, you can go full aggressive and go for an OTK. So they changed the skill where it did not start till turn 3, making it harder for big aggressive decks to be able to play around everything your opponent has. Then, shortly after, the next month, they had another emergency ban list hitting Golden Bamboo Sword. Golden Bamboo Sword, back when Woodland Sprite was actually at 3, was one big reason why it was able to FDK. But they found that even without Woodland Sprite, people were using it for other decks like Endemoin to be able to OTK your opponent and draw your entire deck. So they limit it to 1, so it's not as consistent and you can't draw as many cards. They had put Massive Morph to 1 because too many decks were able to give your opponent a Lava Golem, then next turn, summon out Amazona Swordwoman, and if you Massive Morph your opponent, they had no way to stop you from OTKing them. Then they put 2 cards limited to 2 to keep them away from each other. They had Assault Armor, and they had Secret Pass to Hidden Treasures. Because basically players would play a Silent Swordsman deck with Duel Standby, so you would have 5 cards. You would Hatronade your opponent, and then you would summon out Silent Swordsman level 4, and then you would activate Secret Pass to Hidden Treasures on it, and then as long as you could boost it up 3000 attack, it would be 4000. Or you could boost it up once, and with Assault Armor, attack 2 times for 4000 damage. This ban list is also where they decided they wanted to make a limited 2 toolbox. They put Enemy Controller to 2 to keep it away from all the other meta decks they were hitting. During this ban list, they also had another problem deck they wanted to get rid of. So basically they semi-limited 2 cards to keep them apart from each other. They semi-limited Cup of Ace and Hero Shadow Scout, because basically Hero Shadow Scout would make them draw up to 3 cards and then send any spells to their graveyard, and then they would have Cup of Ace either give your opponent draw more cards so they deck out, or you would draw more cards to help make them deck out as well. There was one deck that Konami really wanted to hit. It was very cheap, and it was very prevalent in the meta for a very long time. They wanted to hit Sylvans. So for Sylvans, they semi-limited 2 cards of them to keep them apart and keep it harder to play. They took away Rose Lover, so they put Rose Lover to 2, and they put Sylvan Marshleaf to 2. So basically you could either have Destruction for monsters or some ability for your bigger monsters with trap immunity as well. So it made it really hard to play the strategy past that point. And on the same ban list, they had Amazon's Onslaught because they wanted to keep away good back row like Enemy Controller from being to such a good free-to-play deck that was dominating the meta. They wanted to hit 3 more cards. They hit Destiny Hero Celestial, Cyber Petite Angel, and Pulse Mines. Pulse Mines was hit because of Geargias. Geargias were able to control your opponent's deck. They could not attack you basically for the rest of the turn after you activate Pulse Mines unless they had trap immunity with Sylvans. And then with Enemy Controller, summoning out 3 monsters consistently with Tithes of the Brethren, they were a very hard control deck to handle. For Destiny Hero Celestial, Masked Heroes were basically the standard of the meta. You could not run outs to anything else because Destiny Heroes would bounce your back row, attack into you, go for game, have a bigger monster, it doesn't matter, they would Enemy Controller it. So they wanted to take Enemy Controller away from Destiny Heroes so you could be a bit more aggressive against the deck. Besides that, they hit Cyber Petite Angel, not because Cyber Angels were actually dominant during the time, but they were afraid because they hit Enemy Controller that Cyber Angels would then not have a big counter to them. And last but not least, they unlimited the card Red Eye Spirit because Red Eye Zombie needed 3 Red Eye Spirit, and if Enemy Controller was taken completely away from them when Spirit was at 2, the deck would be completely dead. And then for this ban list, they also had some skills they hit. The first skill they buffed was Sealed Tombs. They changed Sealed Tombs where it had a cost originally, and they changed it where it did not have a cost to activate the skill Sealed Tombs. And by this point, they were so tired of Duel Standby being used for FTK and OTK decks that they changed the skill so during your first turn, you cannot use monster, spell, or trap effects. They also changed the skills Restart and Balance. Restart, they wanted to have a downside for using it, so they made it where it would reveal your hand to your opponent, thinking if they know what they're versing, they can counter you. For Balance, they changed it where you have to have 6 monsters, 6 spells, and 6 traps to guarantee at least 1 of each in your opening hand. They had changed Grit because Grit originally had it where it would randomly activate where your life points would not go below 1, but it could be used basically multiple times per turn. So if you got hit 3 times, your Grit could activate 3 times in a row, protecting you from a lot of damage. They changed the skill where basically if your life points were 4,000 at the start of your turn, it would not fall below 1 life point once in that game. And then Konami wanted to kill what was left of the stall decks. They hit Extra Extra, which would allow you to duplicate your next draw, so you have 2 of them, when your life points would go down by 2,000. It was not once per turn, so you could continuously heal and draw multiple cards, out-advantaging your opponent. So they made it once per duel. And they also hit the skill Ojama Go. Ojama Go, if you lost 1,800 life points, you could give a token to your opponent that's an Ojama that if it's destroyed, they take 300 points of damage. But the downside about it was you could not tribute it. So basically, you were stuck with it and it could be used multiple times in a duel. So you could actually have it where you take damage, destroy your opponent's monsters, give them a lava golem, and clog up their field with Ojama tokens. Then, a few months later, For Hire was the meta. It became a very problematic deck because you could Dynalock and have a lot of easy accessibility to big monsters. With Beatdown, it was very hard not to get OTK'd by the deck because they could pop your back row and your monsters. So they decided to limit Dyna, the hero for hire, to 1, making it where you could not Dynalock your opponent. They also semi-limited Dampa to 2 because they wanted to keep away the toolbox of cards like Enemy Controller away from Fur Hires who could summon out 3 monsters very easily. And in this same ban list, they also hit Amazonas Baby Tiger, but for the Amazonas strategy, it was a negligible card, so they would not even need to run it in their deck. And then for the skills, you can thank Fur Hires for the change to Beatdown. Beatdown originally had it where for each level 5 or higher monster on your field, in a multiple of 300 points, you would gain that many attack for all of your monsters. So if you had 2 Blue Eyes and a Lord of D, you would gain 600 attack for all 3 of your monsters, including the Lord of D. They decided to change it where it only impacts your level 5 or higher monsters. So you weren't able to summon out a Dyna and boost 2 other smaller fur hires. You would actually need to have big monsters like Hazy Flames that can summon out 3 level 6s to be able to get a full 900 boost. Alright, and that's part 1 of History of the Duel Links Banlist. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe and let me know what other videos you want to see in the future. I appreciate you guys. This is my 100th sub video. Keep fusioning. Let's go Slash.